Welcome. Today we have special guest from Canada. I know that many people like me who are interested in climate crisis, ecological problems already know him. Ian Angus, he is editor of Climate and Capitalism and founding member of Global Eko-Sosyalist Network, and he lives in Canada. Mr. Angus, welcome to our broadcast, and thank you very much for accepting our request.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And let's start. I know your work is related with capitalism and its relationship with climate crisis nowadays. Many people mention the ecological crisis, the climate crisis, or climate chaos. So I wonder that, could you let us know what is the relationship between capitalism and the climate crisis?
Well, if we go back, say, a century and a half in the history of capitalism, capitalism's been around for about 600 or 700 years in different forms. But starting really in the middle of the 1800s, capitalism grew by using fossil fuels. That is, by using past energy from hundreds of millions of years ago, in order to power its factories, power its boats, power its airplanes, and so on. And it has become utterly essential, first with coal, then with oil and other petroleum products. Capitalism has entirely built itself around burning fossil fuels. And of course, the science is very, very clear on this. Burning fossil fuels increases the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And carbon dioxide has been described as the control knob, the temperature knob on our climate. The more carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere, the hotter it gets. So we have an economic system that depends on burning fossil fuels. But more than that, capitalism is a system which must grow. It can't exist, and it can't be stable. It can't simply, okay, we've stopped now, we won't have any more things, because it depends on, investors may have to make a profit. The only reason a bank or an investor or a multi-billionaire puts money into an industry is to get back more than he put in.
Yes.
And so that growth is absolutely built into the way the economy works. It's built around expanding capital on a constant basis. Expanding capital means production has to expand, which means, given the way our economy is structured, that fossil fuel use has to increase. So we have a system that is first based on fossil fuels, but second based on growth, so that it has to use more fossil fuels on a constant basis. And it's truly instructive when you look at the experience of this year with the pandemic, that it's the first time that we have seen any decline in the amount of emissions each year. Now, it has not reached the point of emissions in the atmosphere going down, because the science tells us carbon dioxide goes into the atmosphere, it stays there for a century or more. So it continues to grow, but it's growing more slowly only because we suddenly have this horrible virus that is causing so much death and causing such economic slowdowns. So again, I think that's a third indicator, this fact that it takes something as remarkable and appalling as the COVID-19 epidemic to even slow down the rate of emissions. We will have to, in fact, do more, because it has not got us anywhere near zero carbon, let alone reversing the process.
Yes, it is, I think, really a clear point. And you mentioned also the aim of one of the goal of capitalism. Just they mentioned the growth of state growth by year. They didn't mention why growth is so important. It is like a magic and the trick. You know that if you grow, they said it is good. If you are not, they say no, there is a problem in your economy. But we don't know who grows. It's
Right.
not mean lots of job or poor have opportunity to reach health care and other things, as virus also led us to know what happened for poor in this real world. And so I think it is really important to underline only growth is not mean good things, good future for next generation and for us. So thank you very much for underlining this point. And however, someone thinks different than us, and some of them is politician, and some of them are businessmen, business cliques. They believe that climate crisis or ecological crisis nowadays we face from disaster to disaster, from fires to flooding everywhere. And now they said that there is hoax because communists and the socialists want to damage capitalism and build a new system, and this is way for them. So can we say that because they spread threats and fear for people, they said you will lose your job and the economy will damage and hurt, so you will feel hurt. Can we say that to save world, save our future, we couldn't find a solution economically and therefore eco-friendly? Is it true?
Well, Naomi Klein wrote in one of her books that one of the interesting things about the climate crisis is that the conservatives are right in a sense.
Yes, Burnham, I read also this book, and I admire this question. I take information from this question as you got me now.
Well, that's good. I mean, what she's saying is there's all kinds of liberals who will say, oh, well, it just requires some small changes to the system. We change the taxes a little bit, we'll do a little bit of here, a little bit there, and that will solve the problem. And she says, no, actually, the far right, the right-wing conservatives who say, look, doing this could be catastrophic. The things that we have to do, so long as we keep this economic system, so long as we keep a system that has to grow and has to have profits, the things that we need to do to stop the climate crisis and reverse matters would, in fact, be dreadful. If the whole economy depends on, 50 billion multi-billionaires who own more than half of the world's wealth, well, I'm sorry, they can't keep it. We are not going to let them keep it. Because in fact, one of the things we need to do is, rather than constantly growing to put more money in the pockets of those people, is take the things that we know how to produce, the things that we need that are essential, and make them available to people around the world. I mean, just a simple example, we already produce more than enough food to feed everybody in the world. But yes, doing that isn't profitable. You can't make money by feeding the extremely poor people in Africa, parts of Asia, and so on. So long as we have a system that depends on constantly growing profit, they're right. This is a dangerous system. Now, I actually really wish the whole left would take this on in a really serious way. Yeah. In the last few years, we started to see it, but it's only recently, I think, that many people on the left have started to recognize that this is a fundamental part of the campaign for socialism. I've said on a number of occasions that, Marx said somewhere something to the effect of, we make our own history, but not under conditions of our own choosing. Well, Marx never imagined climate change, but that sentence applies to it, because the socialism we're going to have to build is going to inherit a world that's in deep trouble. And it's going to take extreme measures and on a large scale that simply are not compatible with private profit to end the climate crisis.
I think so, and it is really a good point. Again, you underlined that maybe it is time for all the world, all people around the world to think what is meaning of capitalism and what it gives us, why we couldn't say, no, you couldn't damage this system. Especially the poor one or the other group didn't say this, just someone who takes lots of profit claim this, and they have power to manipulate people. However, I think that with your contribution and with objective criteria and be fair, we will understand some damage just direct result of capitalism, and the climate crisis is one of these results, if you ask me.
I think you're absolutely right. This system has been deadly for people all around the world for a very long time. It's becoming more extreme and more extreme. But what we have in the people who control the media, the people who control television and radio and on, are people, and as has been said by a number of people, they've created the ideology that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism.
Yes.
But the end of capitalism is what we need in order to avoid the end of the world.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Angus. It is really an honor for me again to have you in this program and let our audience to what happened in capitalist system and its result for our world, for our next generation.
Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be spoken to.
Thank you very much again.